What's going on, guys? I'm Jay the Black. Shout out to everybody that's tuning in. I'm going to talk about former NBA player Kwame Brown. Shout out to him. I'm going to put a link to his channel in the description box. Make sure y'all go over there and subscribe to him. The full video, because he actually posted 2 responses. One of them was cut short. Then he had another one. And y'all go and check it out. He responded to the All the Smoke podcast with Steven Jackson, Matt Barnes, and they had a guest, Gilbert Arenas, okay? And somewhere in that discussion, and I may link the discussion too, so y'all can go and check it out. At the 55-minute mark, they started to discuss, Kwame Brown was brought up. And I guess they had discussed Kwame Brown before in a not so good manner. Even Steven Jackson was kind of gesturing to Matt Barnes a bit about him. Just slight offhand sort of disrespect, right? And because Gilbert Arenas was his ex-teammate, they discussed it, and Gilbert, in his own way, was defending Kwame. Well, Kwame decided to do a response, and he went in. Now, I want y'all to understand, I don't really have much of any respect for Matt Barnes, because the guy likes to be a tough guy on social media and challenge people to fights that he doesn't like, especially their opinions politically or socially. If he doesn't like them, he wants to fight. Steven Jackson, I've spoken about him. I really don't have any issues with Steven Jackson. The guy has opinions. I've spoken about his opinions. And Gilbert Arenas, so I've spoken about Gilbert. But let's talk about Kwame. Kwame was the number 1 overall pick, and he actually filled in some gaps in his response about his tenure early in Washington. And he talked about how basically he wasn't meant to be their franchise player. He was actually going to be moved once he was drafted, but plans changed in the organization, and he ended up being there. And it didn't really work out for him, so he went to other teams. We know that. And for some reason, when there's talk of NBA busts, he's always brought up. Even though there may have been worse, I think Anthony Bennett, for a few years back, was probably one of the worst. I mean, his career faded fast, and he was a number 1 overall pick. So, but still, Kwame is brought up a lot in regards to busts, even though the guy played 12 years. He didn't put up great numbers, but he did the things necessary in order to help his team win. And that's the only thing that matters, especially when you are a big man. You're not really going to be a stat guy. And he had a 12-year career. He made money. He was able to take care of himself and his family. As he said, he bought his mother a house. But in his response, he really went in on Gilbert. Gilbert is known to be childish. We know this. We know Gilbert has said a lot of crazy suspect things. I mean, one of the most notorious things I've heard from Gilbert is how he talked about how he would smash the women that Nick Young would get with. Like, blatantly saying it to him right there in the front of his face, basically. And that lets you know what type of guy Gilbert Arenas is. Now, you can appreciate Gilbert, standing up for himself in regards to his previous relationship and, being able to take W's in court with his ex, right, that he dealt with. But the guy clearly is not the most mature guy. He really isn't. Now, in regards to Kwame Brown and what he spoke about with Matt Barnes, he called Matt Barnes Becky with the good hair. I assume that's who Becky with the good hair was, because I don't know anybody else on there who could have the good hair. But I think he basically referred to Matt Barnes as Becky with the good hair. Okay, the fake tough guy on social media, to constantly challenging people to fights that he doesn't like. I just want people to understand something. when you have these guys having these conversations about former players, right? Criticism is going to be had. I think Kwame understands that people are going to be critical of him. But I guess when you have people who you already had a lack of respect for anyway, speaking on you a certain way, it's going to make you feel some type of way. And I can understand that people constantly telling you how bad of a job you did and how bad you were when you lasted longer than most of these other guys that get drafted high. Don't last no more than a cup of coffee in the NBA, even though they're drafted high. That happens. And when you have Matt Barnes, again, this is a guy who, when he doesn't like somebody's political or social views, he wants to fight them. And, you know, and that's the thing. I've defended all these guys before. I've defended Matt Barnes. I've defended Steven Jackson. I've defended, in some ways, I defended Gilbert Arenas at certain things. But I don't have nothing personally against them. But right is right, is wrong is wrong. And if a guy feels like you're poking the bear at him too much, he's going to strike back. He's going to strike back. You know, Kwame even talked about how he had a situation that happened with his hand. He broke his hand because he ended up hitting a wall during a high school game, and it never fully got back to where it was, but he still continued to play, right? Kwame reminds me a lot of the guys I grew up with because he's from the South. He's from Georgia. And guys that are real. They're real and they're blunt, and they're really not going to take shit from anybody. And again, I haven't watched All the Smoke that closely. I've watched episodes here and there. So I don't know how much they're speaking about Kwame. But it's clear that they speak about him enough to where Kwame has taken notice of it, and he didn't like it, and he decided to respond. And that's the thing, like, again, criticism is going to be had. I'm sure Kwame understands that. But sometimes when you watch people talk about you, you watch how they talk about you. And if they're being condescending, they're mocking you, they're not really respecting what you've put into the game, that may anger you. Now again, their job is to be critical. Their job is to poke holes and try to find things, right? But Kwame, I think, to him, enough is enough. Because he feels like he is being singled out for his career when you had far worse. And you had guys who never really lasted that long in the league. They didn't last that long. So, in his perspective, I can understand what he's saying. I can understand that he's looking at this and he's like, wow, like y'all still talking about me. It's 2021. Y'all still talking about me. You know, I don't talk about nobody. I don't say anything like that. I'm not out here, you know, and pretty soon people, you know, they're going to respond. But what I would say is this. His career speaks for itself. He didn't put up the stats. There are people, I saw that people are mocking him, mocking Kwame about how, you know, he set screens for Kobe to be able to drop the 81. I mean, so what? Who else could say that? You know what I'm saying? Now, again, what I would tell Kwame is that people are going to be critical of you even if you were a good player. Good players will get criticized too. But I think when Kwame sees these guys, you know, he says to himself, and he listens to them and what they say about him, he says, you know, it's beyond basketball. Because I've seen Steven Jackson defend certain guys. There are certain guys that these guys will defend no matter what. And I think that Kwame was cool with Steven Jackson. At least he thought he was, right? And then when you see people talking about you in a condescending manner, it stirs you up. It pisses you off. It would me. If I had an ex-teammate that would get on his podcast and make certain remarks about me that had nothing really to do with X's and O's. It was more about, personal attacks or me not being a good player, a good enough player for you to respect, then yeah, you may get some smoke. And that's exactly what happened. They got some smoke. Now Kwame is viral. All these websites are talking about him, New York Post, TMZ, and they're speaking about this. But to me, this is just, I think some people need to be responded to. I think Steven Jackson, Matt Barnes, Gilbert Arenas, and Kwame said something too that I can absolutely agree with. Kwame said the media puts certain people out there basically because they are fools. They are basically, and I'm paraphrasing, they're basically put out foolish people, foolish black people to represent us, to represent what black is. And I'm paraphrasing. And I can understand that because they do put these clowns out here. They put them out here just so they can go out there and make them laugh, to make a joke out of them. That's basically what they are. They're basically put out there to be a stereotype and not really bring anything tangible to the conversation, man. It's like, why are you here? Seriously. What is the point of you being here? And also on Gilbert Arenas, he mentioned how Gilbert cost him money because Gilbert didn't feel like he should be getting the minutes that he was getting. And instead of expecting to have a double-double, which would gain him a close to $100 million contract, he ended up not getting that, getting less than that. And he blamed Gilbert for it. And I can understand, listen, when your money is being messed with, you're going to feel some type of way. Especially if you're with a guy who you feel like it does not really have the team's best interest at heart. They have their own best interest at heart. And I think that encompasses why he may feel the way he feels about Gilbert Arenas. You don't mess with nobody's money or nobody's girl, or kids for that matter. Don't mess with nobody's family or their money, because they will come at you. No doubt about that. No doubt about that at all.